Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is finally February. It's Saturday, February 1st, 2020. And I'm so pleased to be able to be back with my gal pal posse, BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush,
Woohoo!
because I don't even think we've even had a chance to chitty chat much since before Christmas. I think we might have spoke VZ briefly before New Year's. I think it was too. It wasn't even since the New Year. I don't know, but I'm so glad January is over. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a long year.
Yes.
Just the 1 month.
I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that January seemed like it took forever. And it did for me too. I mean, there's been a lot of, the frequency light upgrades going around. I know I had some of that going on along with some.
Well, it was started before that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because mine started before, right around the Christmas, but it seemed like it took forever to actually leave all the way. So
I feel like I've been surf burning on a feather for a while.
Oh my.
I'll have what you're having.
Yeah, man.
But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, we need to do a conversation about that too. So now that we're back at it. So, but I love what we're going to talk about tonight, because Lisa and I have actually been talking about this quite a bit. And not really sure how to approach it. At least I haven't been. But BZ actually came up with a title: Noticing the Theater on the World Stage is Your Decoder Ring. And, anyone that's followed this channel for a while knows how I really feel like everything we see out there, or I anyway, I'll just keep it right here. Everything I see out there that comes in my field is for me. It is a decoder for me. It's all metaphor for me to figure out more about me. And I really feel like that is so true about what we're seeing going on right now. And I guess it is really how we see that, isn't it?
How we see it is the first way I would describe it is how we meet that. It really is a good example of how we meet something. So I knew we were going to get together a place. I was thinking of some things that, when we always say, well, so what are we going to talk about? that I could add to that conversation. And this one has been a couple of days now, noodling back and forth in my head. And as I was explaining it to you guys, it's part of it, because it's bigger than just the, impeachment trial and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't had time to watch it, but like I said, if I'm doing work or something, I come in and I may sit down at the computer and I have 5 minutes. Well, I can click something and hear the audio while I'm doing whatever I'm doing. So it literally has been completely out of context and totally random to if there's anybody there, on being covered or whatever, and or which quote unquote side or which point or which part in the proceeding. So it's just landing for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes here, and at different times of the spectrum. So no following, although knowing the whole thing, and it's, for me, has been a delicious example of the theater of it and decoding for each being, because it's masterful. The script that's being revealed and played out it's cosmically delicious and brilliant in that. And I mean that from a purely energetic sense. I mean that from, a source and trust the plan sense. I mean that from very linear, you know, where there were directives given to write scripts in certain ways and then read scripts all the way through. And some people are saying, what? You know, because there's a lot of triggering if one lets it do that. And there's a lot of, you know, sides, you know, over here, or I can't believe that, or this, or it doesn't matter, you know, whether you have which camp you're in and all that kind of stuff. And there's also a sense of, you know, if one is feeling they're tuned into the more broader picture, the more expansiveness of the unwanting and binding of all of this kind of stuff, still there is that hook that hooks one into, you know, this is never going to be over, or this is not justice, or, you know, whatever this is. And all of those are part and parcel and components and metaphors all woven so beautifully together to be that decoder ring for us, because what we're really decoding and what we're really unwanting and binding is us first, and everything else is metaphor to help us do that, to be a catalyst, to be a trigger, to be like a guide or an enhancement, or you know, wax on your skis to make you, you know, surf a little faster this way or the other way.
Well, I'm really glad you brought it up in that particular fashion, because honestly, I never, until just this moment, even considered the idea that triggering, although I guess I have in my own self, it is because a lot of people look at triggering as a bad thing, you know, because they get triggered, and rather than ask themselves questions in regards to that trigger for themselves, which is what I started doing when I first started my expansion. And I put it like that because I didn't realize that's what I was doing at first. I just wanted to, you know, I was noticing that I was having reactions to things rather than responses. And I didn't like that. It was causing friction for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's what, I mean, it's just now dawning on me in that, you know, alchemical epiphany sort of way, that, oh, okay, so actually triggering can be a good thing.
Yeah.
I guess and there is no if, because eventually a person it would seem like, I mean, I know it took me a while. I'm now 58. I just now really am getting it, you know. So to ask oneself questions about, well, why does this trigger me in such a fashion? What about this triggers me in such a fashion?
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, much like I now hold pain as a barometer or there to inform me of something, I feel triggered is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's to allow me to see that I'm stuck on something. And, you know, I noticed that too. Like, even for me, I thought I had moved past a lot of that stuff. But I have to tell you, Trump is the perfect character for this play, I must say, because that is the first thing I noticed. I was like appalled, and I couldn't believe that he had been voted in as president, because his personality is terrible. And I caught myself going like that, and I had to laugh. And the more that I allowed myself to really look at what that was, the more informed I was. Just like like the title says, about myself.
Yeah.
Because really, I wasn't defining him at all.
No.
I was defining myself.
He's just a metaphor for the work that you're doing for defining yourself, for doing that integration, for parsing out all that, decoding all of the new information, the new energy frequencies coming in, and showing you, triggering you. So you could think of triggering as, which it is, it's a multidimensional tool that may go zzz, right, or polish a little things off here, buff there, or it's a quantum laser focused chisel to chisel different pieces off. And when you were both talking, what came to mind is one's thinking, well, something triggered, we'll say it this way, so something went on, I experienced and I noticed it, and it triggered me. And Sheila, you had said something like, well, eventually if it triggers you, or some people get triggered a lot or repetitively trigger, or it gets in the same trigger, they never let go of the one trigger, they just it's a perpetual trigger. And that is the layers of distortion. So if you think of it as a tool, so think almost, for some reason this comes to mind, of a pitchfork, a tuning fork, so this happens, that reverberation in the trigger, and those waves are going out throughout you, and I think it's kind of what a Sonicare toothbrush or something goes, where it does that, right? So there's distortion on the enamel of the tooth and all these different, so it comes out. And if you have multiple layers of distortions on distortions on distortions, which everybody does in all varying degrees, and some just have been working on them for a while, but you may have that reverb in there where it gets in a pocket and it seems to keep making almost an echo or something, and it's loosening and letting go of those things, but more is unearthed from it. And another thing that goes along with that is that as we're noticing and playing with these things, we're doing it for ourselves. I mean, we're on a journey from source, go forth and know source. So that's what we're doing. We are source, and we're going forth to know source, and we're reporting back to source, right? And so as we do these things, we've got the free will. We're perfectly free to have the choice and have whether we choose to go to the frequency of love, absolute, and expansion now, or in 52 billion years, or in 10 years, or in a couple hundred, millennia of infinity, sort of thing. That it's completely our choice, and none of it is a wrong choice or a right choice. And so what we're seeing here right now is that in this moment, someone who may be triggered repeatedly or stay in the same trigger and keep going on, a lot of that is also a free will choice. From a linear childish way, you could go la 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 la, not listening, right? Or not, because nobody else needs to exist. Everybody else disappears, and within that being, they're working incredibly hard to keep putting those pieces back on them, the distortions back in place, like gluing them on, putting the mortar back in place, because their true, clear, clean signal, frequency signal that is the magnificence of who they are, is not a resonant match to these other things. And so now, with all that's going in within them, all that's going in within the whole frequency resonance chamber of this planet and all of Source's multiverses, is this perpetual, again, to use that toothbrush kind of metaphor, to work all of this distortion off. And if there is not a progress in that thing, it's because the free will is so strong at that particular moment to block that or reshore back up the stuff. And someone just said, well, how could that possibly be? And why? Because for that being, it's their choice and they are the expert for them. So it's a beautiful choice and it's perfect in that moment. It may not be someone else's choice, and that's perfect for you too, provided that you look at it and go, that's a, that's a noticing, that's a clarifying moment. And you go, yeah, no thanks, and you do something else. But it's when one then gets triggered. Okay, so see now so someone's watching someone else get triggered and they're kind of triggered or ticked off or aghast or whatever phrase you want to use to do that. They're like, well, what's wrong with him? Or why did they get her? I got to wake him up. Or same right now. Everything we just talked about of it is the same thing here. And again, it's all for each individual to have that cleaning up and that noticing, resonance of noticing, because there is no judgment in it. If you are simply noticing, you're not lacing it and interjecting any other kind of judgment or attached to something, because which is glue. That's that. Then you're gluing stuff back on you as well.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of us that have followed this channel and the three of us in our conversations. Everybody's kind of weary now and want this to be over and we're done with this and all of that. And I want to say this about that. Say what, Lisa?
I'm questioning that. I said, are we? I think no.
Because there is, I mean, I see it out there, it's time to wake everybody up. It's time for this to, happen. And I get it. I do. But, I'm reminded again of my conversation with Danny now fully 2 years ago, that actually the very first one that I had with him that was supposed to be recorded, that miraculously wasn't recorded at the time, where it dawned on me for the first time that there is so much to be revealed on this planet as to what the real true goings on have been, and how none of us, let's face it, most especially those that are the heaviest triggered behind what's going on the world stage, have been paying not a bit of attention to any of that and have relied others to tell them the story. And so the only way that it really makes any kind of sense at this point for me is to, well, like I said, these conversations with you two have so helped me really grok the truth of it, that each individual singularity of the one gets to choose the how, the when, the where, to actually fully awaken. Not me. I don't get to choose for all of you, and you don't get to choose for me. That's not how any of this works. And so we can all, get triggered behind the fact that there's these boobs that are keeping us all down. But in truth, that's not so, because I've seen a lot of that most recently with, it's taken too long, and all of that. And
well, there's two things I want to say to that. First one is that when you have that thought, when you have that, you see that, or what's taking these boobs so long, whatever, then stop for a moment and go, wow, thank you for that gift. I really appreciate this moment where I'm meeting you, I'm meeting this interaction, I'm meeting this experience right here, I'm interfacing with it, I'm going, wow, that's so cool. And a whole chorus of people said, what are you doing? Because in that moment that you have it, then you can do a couple of different things. You can avail yourselves of a couple of different things that are being given to you. One is to realize, okay, where is there still friction? Is there judgment? Is there attachment to something that is showing forth for you in this being or situation, whatever it is that's triggering you or that making you go, come on, whatever it is. And then you can look at that, because you can't take that in the frequency exchange and the expansion in the consciousness rising where you want to go. If you want to go in those places, you just can't take it with you. It's got to be sheared off, right? The shearing force has got to shear it off. So in that moment, you can go, oh yeah, that too. Okay, great. Well, let me look at that. Let me play with that for a minute. So that's a huge gift, because all of us will keep bringing things to us, keep calling forth things to us to show us that, to give us that experience, because we've asked for expansion, right? And that's why we're on this planet. This planet is not filled with people who asked for expansion and the rest who did not, because they wouldn't be on this planet at this moment. Sorry,
I know, but it's really tough when folks are and I get that. I do. And I've given a lot of thought to this, because it is a free will situation. And it would be no more right, okay, to force an awakening on a being who wasn't ready for it, who doesn't want it in that particular manner, than it is.
And that doesn't mean that people have to wait for it themselves. See, I think that's a lot of times. I know that that was a piece of it that I stumbled on, and it took me a while, and I finally figured it out. That I'm thinking, well, they can have free will choice all they want, but they're messing with my free will because they won't wake up. And I was, fierce about that, and because it was right. By God, everybody knows it's plain as day. What the hell's the matter with you? Because And then I thought, yeah, that's when I discovered that was a gift, because clearly I was missing a whole bunch of stuff, even though it seemed so bang up obvious to me, right? And so I played with that, and I let it go, because they were not stopping me from moving forward. They were not stopping me from shearing off and letting go of the distortions. In fact, they were giving me a gift. They were coming to me with this gift to help me with more tools and more, supersonic, teeth cleaning things, everything else. And as I used that, as I availed myself, as I had gratitude for that, and did that for me instead of looking at there, everything changed within me, and everything changed within my life, and everything changed within my frequency neighborhood. Why? Because I changed my frequency neighborhood. So I had different beings, and so there was not that thing where, well, they've just totally ruined my day, or they've just totally, whatever. Because it doesn't work that way. If there is, an intersection for a moment in something, and you can look at it, they've just pointed out something, probably totally unintentionally, and then they can work. And so that's where part of it comes up. So that was the gratitude part, and that it really is a helpful tool. The other thing I forgot exactly where I was going to tie it in, but it was something that Lisa said that made me I was thinking about it already with Sheila. It's something Lisa had just said, made it come back, and that is that, I don't remember the exact point, but it related to that this theater that's going on. So if you maybe don't get what's going on within you, but if you look at something and in noticing how it is theater, and in fact, there has been description more recently that it's a movie, and I was saying this to you guys off camera, that I like the trouble I have with the metaphor of a movie is oftentimes a movie it's got script and all the cast and everything else, but there's a director, and the director will choose, he or she will choose how they want to put all those components together. And you can have the same exact cast and crew and location and everything else, and just change the director and have a very different end result. So, and there's also the cutting room floor. So, if there's ad lib, then the ad lib may get cut or slightly off script, and inspiration comes. But in a theatrical sense, you can have it where there is more inspiration in the moment. There is that free. So, what I was wanting to use this is an example, that free will that comes through. So that that this is a script, and they are following the theatrics in the play. It's energetically a script. It's from source. It's a script. It's actually linear in a tangible way. A script, bring to mind the impeachment trial when people are reading through their things. They're reading them. So that's how I started this whole conversation about thinking about plays. Think about the beauty of that for a minute. And what just happens to be in whatever was reading that thing, this side or that side, doesn't really matter. Pick one, or pick both, or weave them through. And then take one piece, because remember, this was hitting me because I would dive in for a minute here, or 5 minutes here. So I would only, not having seen the rest of the stuff. And maybe that's why it hit me in such a delicious way of what a masterful thing that this was. Because this one piece that I happened to land on, and maybe it was the ending piece, and then there was either the next part that came on, and so I had another few minutes over here that responded. But if you look at them, that they just happened. Each piece just happens to bring up just the right thing that then can, again, doesn't matter which side, can then be looked at the counterpoint on the other side, or the evidence for, evidence against, whatever it is. And they dovetail in for painting the larger picture, because everyone is waking up. Everyone is doing these things. And this is helping them to be the decoder ring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I hadn't actually, it's easy to see when looking at for me anyway, individual mileage may vary, but because, Lisa and I've had the opportunity to look at quite a bit more than just here and there. And I'd like to do even more, actually. But the idea that there are scripts is pretty easy to see some of that going on in that particular manner for what is going on that world stage.
So I'll give you one example that pops to mind. So you had Senator Paul, right? Rand Paul. And he had this question. And then John Roberts, Chief Justice, is supposed to look at the thing and say it's from who it's from, and he reads it, and then he reads it out loud. It's pretty simple, right? It's pretty straightforward. And so he reads it in his, silently, and then he says, the chair will not read this as written. And the woman sitting in front of him, I don't know what her official title is, but she's like, Chief Justice? Like, what? Did you forget how all this goes already or something? And then Senator Paul goes to his mic and this whole kind of thing. And people are, how you can't do that, and see, he's, Chief Justice is compromised, and all, and absolutely all those things are actually correct. Yes. But if you look at it as the whole place, so in all of that script being followed, and in the theater that came from that, all of the different points and counterpoints that came out of it were so masterfully done that far better, far more expansive, more layered, more revealing, more with a broader reach, audience reach, end user reach, and end user fulfillment, right? Have it for it having played out the way that it did. So you got it covered all the camps, whether they were, this camp or that camp, it covered all of them from different angles, from different things. It gave it more exposure because it took it outside of this, because it was on C-SPAN, it was a sound bite, and so because then again, if you're Orange Man bad, then the mainstream media, so you can say, well, see, this is working great because the Chief Justice shut this down and all that. So that's just one example that I happen to see that's a master, for me, it's a masterful way that this is playing out. Another example is, Congressman Schiff is going on about a certain thing, that they clearly had it, scripted in there. If you pound a few things, a couple, only those few things relentlessly, then the old adage was, and it was true, that because of the repetition, then people would look no further, and this is the authority, and this is what it is. But if you look at it in the context of all that's being revealed, what was being pounded and the way that it was being pounded about the bribery and the quid pro quo and stuff, right, is actually setting the stage and pounding or softening the ground, kneading the dough of all the consciousness of all the different beings to, didn't matter whether they say you're nuts, that's what they did. And it's not Democrats and Republicans. That's the other thing people seem to make but they'll figure that out, right?
Well, I hope that is something else that I wanted to at some point address, whether we do it in this conversation or some other kind of conversation, because I don't see it. And I personally, I don't see, I feel like because we're discussing this as theater, because it really is. It's like, I don't know, maybe there was some sort of a coin toss as if they decided which side was going to be exposed first, but make no mistake, it's the same, it's the two wings of the same bird. And I really feel like, for the revealing portions of this, it's just that this particular, I think because it happened now, because of everything that has gone on and all of the stuff that is coming out that's been done in particular, and believe me, I'm a lifelong Democrat, so I can, being related to President Harry S. Truman, I can tell you this, I mean, I had discussions with my dad during the election in 2016. I said, oh, Trump's never gonna make it. He's a distraction of some sort, Dad. I don't know what kind of distraction. I don't get it, but he is not ever going to be put in as president. Because my dad was like, oh, yes, he is, and I'm like, no, he's not. And so believe me when I say this has been as big a surprise to me as anyone, but being able to open myself up and step out of that label and that lifelong thought process that goes along with all of that. And like I said,
that's part of that's part of the decoding. That's part of the decoding ring. That's a little facet on your ring that you can shine you turn the ring a certain way and you shine it catches the beam and you go, oh, look, wow, look at that, look at the picture it's putting up on the wall from that, right? Yeah, absolutely. And as that is happening, then again, depending on each being's free will choice and how they maneuver through it and then do the subsequent work that must be done, it's not an option. Because everybody has drama and trauma and all that kind of stuff, and it has to all be right, unwound and unbound, and so that you can reveal to, blossom to. Remember, there's lots of different ways. They're all correct because it depends from which facet that you're looking at, the truth of who you are.
I'm reminded of sitting at the trial, the purported trial for Heather and Randy. And it really, in hindsight, it really needed to go down the way it did.
Yes.
For the theater. Like, I didn't fully appreciate that in the moment, even though I knew it on a conceptual basis. But watching what's happening now, I keep having flashbacks of how much I've changed since allowing myself to see what transpired in the courtroom. Because the layers and the levels, just how intricate all of this is put together and nestled in, and
it's all
how much, and how much has to be released.
Yes.
And it has to be released from in here.
Yes.
And it was pivotal that even the resistance we saw, like you were just talking about Roberts there, I saw a lot of that happen in this trial too. It was just like, made me go, wait a minute. That's not justice at all on any level. And then I realized, well, isn't that the whole point of it?
Yeah,
there really has never been justice, but we've assumed that it happens in that way. And I watched enough Boston Legal to really believe that it happens that way. That I needed my core shook to the foundation by simply bearing witness to what is and being okay with it. Like, I couldn't be in resistance to it and begin to fight it, because then I know that I'm solidly keeping it in place by doing so. So in order to unbind and unwind it from myself, I had to just be okay with it. Be okay that I was under a whole bunch of false pretenses, or that I had these false belief systems in place. And I really saw it for myself as a beautiful opportunity to look at what is and be okay with it. And just to start there. And, it was just a tiny baby step, but pivotal for me, because I couldn't be where I am today had I not made those very foundational, simple awarenesses by just being in the room and noticing.
Right.
And so I took that skill with me to the C-SPAN. And it served me well, because I still was triggered by different things that would happen. Like a small part of me would rise up and then I was able to go, oh, wait a minute. It's like, I've chosen up a side. Hang on a second. This isn't what I think it is, remember? Even though I've been at this for quite a while, this trial was very important for me to bear witness to.
Yeah.
Because it revealed more and more parts of myself. And I know that I'm not the only one going through this. And I know that my staying focused only on myself and allowing myself to let go of things that aren't true, that aren't serving me, that aren't in line with what I wish to create moving forward, just to simply let them go without any judgment or reprisals or any of that. Just within myself, just allowing myself to do that was so incredibly freeing.
Yeah.
The more I practice this, the less and less I find myself being upset by any of this drama. As a matter of fact, I'm growing more and more grateful for it with each moment.
Yeah.
Because it's
that's what I'm saying. That's that gift that comes forward. And, and I heard a couple of people saying, well, the Tennessee case is really just, it's not. It's not. And as you see these different things, you watch whether it's a snippet here and there or great sections of the impeachment trial, or you think about the General Flynn case or other things, they're all related. They are all intricately, intimately tied together, working. They're all the same team. It's all the orchestration. It's all the script writings. The team are all working together for, as I keep saying, that which is the big story above the fold.
Well, I also feel, I want to say here too that because it really bears repeating in one way, that almost all, I would say, folks that have ever had anything to do with the court system, because let's face it, most folks haven't had anything to do with the legal system, the court, the judicial system. They don't. All they've ever known is what they've been taught or told in school. We have this democracy, this fair judicial system. It's all been set up in a particular sort of way, and it's done so that it's equal justice for all. And the truth of the matter is that it was never meant to be fair to anyone. That's been made clear to me now from our experiences in Knoxville and the information that you still house on the IUV in regards to the court registry investment system. I mean,
well, that's what I was going to say. More to the point, it was never a justice system. It's a bank.
And it always has been. But that's my point here. And the reason I'm bringing it up is that what this is when we speak on unbinding and unwinding in regards to these things, these are programs and conditionings that we've all had. Every one of us, not one person on this planet actually has escaped the trauma of programming and conditioning of all sorts of things, and we just go along thinking that, well, this is the way it is because this is what I've always told, Mama always told me I could trust the policeman, and Mama always told me that the courts had my best interest at heart. It was blind justice, and I was going to be judged by a jury of my peers, and they were going to hear all the evidence, and everybody gets their day in court. And nothing could be further from the truth on any of that.
Right.
So that has to be said. And it doesn't stop at the impeachment either, because it's all the same judicial system.
Right. And so that's why I was saying, as you play with this and you notice, you see that you begin to very, very clearly see whether it's, you've been looking at the impeachment trial, and then you then have heard, put some up on the IUV. Got another one I'm gonna put up today. Rudy Giuliani's he has a new podcast. Well, he's doing his version of a trial because he was a lead prosecutor, racketeering, all that kind of stuff, and he's bringing in all the threads of Burisma. And again, that as he goes down that, he will show you very clear that it isn't. Yes, Biden is one of the big ones, but it's deep within generations of the government from both sides, and there are actually no sides. It's all the same animal. It just has a bunch of different legs. Some are polka dotted, some are striped, or whatever.
Well, yes, and that's been an illusion of choice all along.
But that's how everything is related, because this illusion of choice, since we all have a free will choice. So if there is a purported choice, whether it's in the media or in movies or in healthcare, or pick any section, segment, sector, any of it, right? Any structure, any system. And that illusion of the choice, well, then that can be masterfully appeasing your free will choice, that you're choosing something, yet you're choosing it under the guise of the structure that and the contracts that you've been, that are explicit contracts and completely complicit, and tacit contracts that you didn't really realize that you were giving the tacit approval to. So those are all related too. And one thing I think that's clear for a lot of people, but becoming more and more clear for more and more others, is that there are layers to all of this. There's layers to all this orchestration. It is all connected. And the very top, I don't know what the thing's called, but when you have a marionette, right, you've got the kind of that cross piece at the top that holds all the different ones and pulls all the strings, right? So the top of that on this planet, which reaches out and is interconnected in an energetic and linear highway throughout many sectors and segments of the cosmos, is the financial slavery piece. And the other things come from that. So there are ones that are being revealed, and people, depending on where they are and how they have already met it, a little tiny bit or a whole lot of the pedophilia and Satanism and all that kind of stuff. Yes, but that's underneath the main thing. So as fully involved and from a narrow linear perspective, just absolutely abhorrent and outrageous things, they again are underneath, if you think of a business structure, because this is what we're talking about, and a control structure. So they're underneath that, and then you keep going to the financial, because that has touched every being, absolutely every being, and is in every facet. And then when you get above that, so again, all of that is still below the fold on the newspaper. So here's the banner of the newspaper and everything. All the things that we've been talking about are all below the fold. That's not the lead story. The lead story is, and this is the decoder ring part, the truth of who you are is the lead story. And that will be actually the hardest for a large majority of beings, ratio-wise, to come to grips with. Because it's such an anathema to how, they went forward to no source. They went all the way down the depths of that, whether it was perpetrating things or complicit in things or supposedly, quote unquote, the victim of things, right? And that those quote unquote go for everything that I just talked about. As you go through that, to realize that, and again, that openness, that forgiveness, that love absolute, that just realizing that it's integration. You take the distortions up, because any distortion of punishment or any distortion of judgment and attachment and looking at things are distortions.
Yep. Well, I know that that's true too. And there's a lot of things that I've thought that I actually grok all the way through that I'm realizing that are still more than likely intellectual exercises for me. Compassion, however, is not one of them. Because for some reason, there's something within me. I've always felt like, for one thing, violence begets more violence. And so, yes, I know there are things I've seen a lot recently. Even there's a lot of folks that are struggling with the whole the pedophilia part, and the fact that there are children being tortured and harmed, and how do you square that with this idea of free will and all of that sort of thing. And I really feel like no one, and I said this earlier today, no one's incarnating on this planet without knowing what the deal is before they incarnate here.
Right?
that's, I get it. I get it. There are people, because we come in, we agreed to forget all of this. That was part of the gig too. Forget who we are. I guess I must be one of those thrill seekers, because I've decided to wait till the very last freaking moment to actually get it all the way. But I really do feel like that's what the name of the game is here, and I'm actually very, I won't say confused, but surprised, I guess, is really what I feel about how many folks that, and I guess it's just that what I'm witnessing on a lot of levels is a lot of intellectual exercise still going along for folks, because there are things I really truly thought that I got and really grokked all the way through. And when it actually happened, when what I now term as the alchemical epiphany actually happened, I can look back and see where, okay, that's what an intellectual exercise really is.
Yeah.
So
I'm familiar.
It's unmistakable, because when it's not an intellectual exercise, that core knowing, that absolute, total, complete, eternal, unending knowing is there. And it doesn't matter what this side or that side, or this legal document or that legal document, or this argument or this argument, or this, well, wait, but there's this new truth revelation, this new evidence has come to light, the new Bolton thing, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. Because it doesn't, as Jim Jordan keeps saying, the facts are still there. So those eternal, absolute facts of the truth of who you are still there, and those other things don't change them at all. And when you can see that, when you can understand that, when you can totally feel that, and there is peace in it, confidence in it, joy in it, expansion, you feel like, there's this rush of, you've just jumped to 52 million different galaxies all at the same time, and you're right here. Then you understand that when you juxtapose it to something else, that was an intellectual exercise, and this is holding it.
Yeah, and now that I've experienced that, I can say that there really is a huge difference in the two. So I had to laugh, because I don't have the exact wording for it, but there's a clip of a rather famous person who's, supposedly vying for one of those presidential spots, that said, what was it, Lisa? Something, facts and truth.
Yeah, we choose truth over facts.
Yeah, okay, that's and truth is such a subjective thing, okay? In my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's things that it's what's true as opposed to truth. Because each being holds everything in their sphere, in their experiences. So something is true for them. Absolutely, yes. And something, right. Another thing is true for something else. So we've got three people right on here, and true and true and true. Absolutely. Right? But that's why if you can keep reminding yourself to go back to the frequency of something, and not the more linear connotations, denotations of truth or fiction, or right or wrong, or however you want to phrase it, then you can see from the frequency. Because you can have, and we've talked about this a lot before, maybe it's something to play with, would be very helpful to play with on a more focused scale sometime soon. But you can have someone who's doing something, and they're in it, and you could look at it from a linear thing, and you could say, well, that's constricted. So So that's bad or one energy. And then you can have someone else who's supposedly thinking that they're doing something that's, light and fluffy and bunnies and wanting to reach into their connection with their soul and all this kind of stuff. But the way that they're doing it is actually holding the frequencies of the two things absolutely match, because it's not what the he said, she said in that thing in either one. And it's not whether it, there's a law and the beam, the bunnies over here, and this is dark, and there's, foreboding music and all that kind of stuff. It's the frequency of what someone is doing and holding in that, not what is the linear, the tangible results. And so that's an example. If you are thinking about 5D and you're just, I'm only going to think about good stuff, I'm not going to think about the bad stuff and everything else, then in pushing all that other away, thinking that somehow that you're more rarefied or better or whatever it is, the holding of that frequency is just the same frequency as someone else who is, wears a dark cloak and there's clouds around, thunder, lightning, storms, in their drama, just as yours has the bunnies. It's the exact same frequency, because there's a denial frequency, there's an exclusion to that, and there's a judgment right to that. It's just different opposing, the description, the metaphor is different and opposing to that. Right.
Well, that's, I feel what you're saying there. Sometimes it might be a little, because it used to be difficult for me to really grasp what you meant when you were talking about that. But I really get it now, especially after having, conversations where we have talked about how pushing away all that might be considered darkness or shadows or whatever presents in one's field is really, it's not, when I first started waking up to spirituality and all of that, it's all about positive thinking. We don't want any negativity. No negativity here. No, don't want to think about this negativity. But that I now get that's not how, it's not how this actually works. Not if you're looking to integrate into wholeness. Because as long as I'm holding something out here, pushing it away, it's going to stay out there and continue to chase me around.
Right. Well, not only that, but you're not linear, or not just linear. I mean, you do have a linear, you're in a body on this planet right now, so you have a linear component to you, right? You have a third dimensional polarity, right?
Right.
Juxtaposition part to you. But you're multidimensional. So you are linear and quantum and multidimensional all at the same time. So you are who you are right in this chair, and part of you is also a rat bastard. Could be on this planet, could be, okay. So you are who you are right now in this chair, and I can't wait to meet my star brothers and sisters and this kind of thing. Well, hey, newsflash, you're multidimensional, so you actually are one of those already, right here, right now. They're, from a linear perspective, you in the future that came back to you to answer the call. Doesn't matter, because it's only here, right this moment, and it's in all of those. This is probably the best thing to do, the layers, as opposed to, past, present, and future, or, there's 3D and 5D. So people think, well, in the linear, and I'm going up to the fifth dimension. But you're a multidimensional being. So you are all of those right now. You are bringing all of those into this singularity and awareness, cognizing all of it right now. And that's what's happening. But, sitting in the Barker Lounge and waiting to get the memo that the new Earth is here, or the event is happening, and you're going to go down the Fifth of May and catch the shuttle, you're not leaving this. And if you have the propensity to get rid of that, right? Block all this all bad stuff out, you will never get to where you're purporting to want to be, because it's a frequency mix match. You can't, that route won't get you there.
Well, that's why I said, you know, we've actually had a conversation once before about the difference between that slogan, "We are one." You know, everybody wants, you know, unity, right? And we are all one. We're all interconnected and all of that. And I say, and yet singular, because I feel that for me. I feel it for everyone, but I'm not going to force my thoughts on you. So you come to that in your own time, okay? But it makes perfect sense that there really is only one being, and all of us are a portion of it. And so when I view what is going on this world stage and notice my own thoughts and feelings and reactions to it as I am experiencing it in my field, all of that is other portions of me playing out information and things for me, so that I can get to know me on the most intimate of levels. And I really feel like, I mean, you know, again, I always say your mileage may vary, but there's no harm in opening oneself up and considering what I've just said. I don't care what side of the aisle one thinks they reside. You know, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, doesn't matter. Opening oneself up to seeing all of this as your own, my own little decoder ring, purposefully for me to take a look at, see, sense, and feel into all of it. I'm really glad that we had this conversation in this particular manner, because that's all anybody's asking of. It's not, I know a lot of folks do get triggered and say, well, this is the fate of the free world. And no, there's really only one of us here. We're all going to be fine. And we really are eternal beings. And if we get to it for ourselves, without that attachment. I really didn't get that either, by the way. That's something I now really went from an intellectual exercise to really alchemical epiphany of grokking all the way through, is when one has an attachment. Anything you feel strongly about, there's an attachment there. You can bet.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone that's participating in this conversation at a later date, because I know that it expands as those who watch our conversations and participate, I'd love to hear from you about what you think about it, what you feel about it for you. Don't contact me and go into the whole, you know, this side is this and that side is that, because I'm not interested in all of that, because that's not how I'm viewing it. But, you know, if you want to contact us, you know, in the comments or personally, all of our emails are always in every one of these videos. Reach out.
Yeah, so say what give voice to what you notice, because that will already automatically put you in an energy frequency of non-attachment.
Yeah, just what you notice. And I noticed quite a bit about myself while I was watching some of this. And it did bring up for me quite a bit about the the trial over in Knoxville that Lisa and I went and witnessed for ourselves. And I noticed, you know, a lot of it was pretty comical for me, you know, watching actually both sides and things that everybody is saying and doing, and the scripts, because there really are. It's very easy to see where some really actually are scripts. I mean, some of them even use the exact same language as they're describing the exact same thing. It's like, oh wow, somebody forgot to change the wording so that they didn't sound like they were just repeating each other, in some of that. But
And
yeah, so
I just want to add this one thing, because it came, I saw and heard myself reliving one of these little snippets, you know, that I was talking about, that you gave the example. She said, well, you know, it's the faith-free world. Yes, absolutely. So from a linear perspective, you bet. And that's what the frequency is. You bet. Absolutely. And be fierce about that. And I set back to, you know, widen your aperture a little bit more and a little bit more. And you keep doing that. And so all of those things hold true, because those are the choice points, the node points of frequency expansion, consciousness expansion. And this moment where all of you is imploding into you, you are bringing all of that into the physical, not only a physical body, but for you, this physical body, this one right here for you, right? And that is then the point where you will see all of those things and all of that capability from these eyes of yours right here. So remember, we talked a little bit a minute ago about that you're multidimensional. So you will actually see and run cognitively, knowingly, in an awake, you know, sense. I don't know how to put it in linear terms that make sense, but all of the others of you, that's you, and then you're pulling that out. So if you could think of them as you put on your costume to be, you know, that can put on the whole magma and everything of a planet that you are. So you're doing those, but there's all coming into, so that you realize and you pilot the ship of your soul and that singularity, which is you, from this physical body. That's what this is all meaning. And It's never been done before.
Well, I want to say one final thing is just open yourself up to seeing your own programming and conditioning, no matter what it is. If you're triggered about something, doesn't matter what it is. I'm very serious about that, because a lot of folks are getting triggered, of course, you know.
Well, and there is, I don't remember what they was talking about, but Adam Schiff was talking, and there's something that was in the script being revealed, and I thought, oh, it's so masterful. It really is great. And Jesus, I don't know if I can take much more of how well you're doing this script, because you're driving me friggin' nuts. I mean, so I was in multiple different, location of consciousness at the same time. Bravo, applauding how great it's done, how it was connecting to this particular piece. And oh my God, I think I'm gonna shoot myself if I have to, so, or how can you be this obtuse or whatever it is. So yeah, and that's part, and notice that too. Notice the ability to come back, because that's more of your decoder ring, because that'll help you with things that are just personal to you, or just in your narrower sphere, not the metaphors out, more external, more global, more linear, as it were. And it's
and also I like the movie metaphor in this sense, that I'm watching this like I would a movie, because for the duration of a movie or a television program, I can set aside sort of my, well, that could never happen. That's not right. I can just set that aside and enjoy the show.
Right.
And I have been practicing that, enjoying the show, really, because actually, like you were saying earlier, it's really, really impressive.
It is.
Like, so I've been saying things like, I choose to see what is. These kind of things are what I'm saying to myself, because I don't have skin in the game. I'm not choosing up a side, or even just, you know, hoping it would get over quickly. Like, can you just spit it out already? Or, you know, I was watching myself saying things like, you know, you guys are dragging this out forever and this is so uncomfortable. And instead, when I approach it as just allowing myself to see what is, without having any attachment to what is, right? I have been marveling, because I wanted to know, like, so I've just been looking at C-SPAN mostly, and clips of past lives that I've missed, and then sometimes we get in the flow there, and we're there while it's live, and I'll think, you know, wow, this is taking too long, or this is really distracting because he's lying. Okay, so now I've decided to just allow it to be and not get upset about it. And I've noticed even more stuff. And it's done so brilliantly. And I know that, you know, to me, this is how I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing it as though Source, or my soul, however you want to look at it, is trying to tell me a story, and it's revealing to me what is, because I've kind of had this other belief of what is, and that isn't anymore. It never was, but for me, that's been shattered. Okay, so now I see it as, I'm going to use that puppeteer thing you were using earlier. I see it as Source is playing. I'm a musical instrument Source is playing through. So really, Source, our souls, are changing things because of a deep soul level desire to do so. And so each one of us is that instrument Source is using, right? And so I kind of see Source doing, like, you know, the maestro would, and, you know, now you go, and now it's your turn. And when I take it in from that perspective, it's beautiful, because sometimes a thing has to be worded just specifically, or just so, in order to, like you were saying earlier about setting the stage for that internal epiphany. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's my epiphany, and sometimes it's the person seated to my left or my right, or perhaps in, you know, the neighborhood across town, but it was said just so. When I watch it from that point of view, the magic that is happening.
It's fabulous. It's absolutely cosmically delicious. Yeah.
How intricate and delicious it all is. If you can, you know, rise above, sort of ascend the linear game, and look at it for what it really is, for what is, it's really quite spectacular. And I've lost my desire for things to change in an instant, because, well, I didn't change in an instant. And I'm grateful for all of the instances it has taken me to arrive to this place that I am now, because I am more filled with peace and harmony just within myself than I have ever been in all my years on this planet. And so each one of those small epiphanies and those little moments have built up to this crescendo of this now for me. And I don't begrudge anyone a moment of it. And so from that perspective, to me, it is all done. And it hasn't yet begun, all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I can enjoy each level and layer of it so deliciously when I simply allow what is.
Yeah.
Well, I want to point out too, though, Lisa, that I feel very strongly that that allowing the noticing and what is, it does require one to be open and lay down some programming and conditioning, or at least be open to seeing, sensing, feeling, and hearing one's own programming and conditioning. And there's a lot of that is what's triggering folks right now.
Yeah.
Especially the ones where we've BZ, I love the orange man bad, okay, and that does seem to be a lot of what happens with a lot of folks. It's just, it doesn't matter what anybody says, that fella, right? And I know because
I remember I had it. So
I know I had it too. It's like I had it too. So I'm not. This is not anything I'm saying about anybody else. I had it too, and but so being open to, especially when being triggered on anything, I have found, at least for myself, and again, your mileage may vary, that when a trigger occurs, anything that triggers one, 9 times out of 10, there's a program or a condition that's being triggered. And I'm just saying that, or or attachment. Usually, if there's a program being triggered, there's also an attachment to, well, that program and or conditioning.
Either the program or I don't have that program.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm not programmed. What are you talking about? That's for Hare Krishnas and Scientology people.
Or that's nuts. I would never come down and have this life and do that. Never. No.
Okay. There's no way I chose any of this.
Okay.
Yes, because I went through that too. There's no way in hell I would have signed up for what I've experienced in this lifetime. And yet now, after everything I've experienced,
I love it.
I actually arranged it all. So, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming and hanging out with me. It was so good to get to have this particular conversation.
Fun. I missed you, BZ.
Yes, we've missed you, BZ, a lot. So I want to say again, if you are subscribed over at BZ's channel, come on over to Conscious Conversation Central and subscribe over here as well, and do the same. Oh, if you're subscribed here, go over and subscribe to BZ's channel as well. We'll have all of those in the show more section for you so that you can do that very easily. Also, if you, like I said, you want to reach out to any one of us, our emails are always there. And and if you want to be notified whenever we go live, because I've been doing a lot more lives recently, and the 3 of us actually have done at least 1 live, make sure to hit that. Oh, that's right, we've done 2. That's right.
It was way last year, but
so long ago is what
I know. I can hardly remember.
So I guess that's it. I can't. It's been so long. I've kind of forgotten what else to say. I think that's it. If I left it out, I guess I'll say it next time. Thank you, ladies. Until next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.